DJS Antariksh is the official Martian rover team of Dwarkadas J. Sangvi College of Engineering, which is situated in Mumbai, India. And this team was founded at the start of 2020. So, four of my seniors had got the first idea of this competition called ERC, which took place in Poland. At that point, even they were unaware of what exactly happened in the competition. They'd heard about it and they came up with the idea that we should start something and we should participate. Further researching, they found out that this is one of the biggest space and robotics competition that happens all over the world. With that kind of an approach towards the competition, they approached the faculties ahead of department, and accordingly then they got the approvals for the same, for setting up a team which can aim towards rover competitions. Once all the approval from the college and everything was done, then the team was founded and recruitment was held so that we could take new members, younger generations into the team. Like I was one of those younger generation who came into the team at that point. So even I had no idea at that point. We just knew what a rover was and how exactly we could go about it, how we could build it. We had no clue until then. Our first full team meet, everyone was so excited that we were working on a new project and something that was going to be built from scratch. Like from our end as well, all the research that goes into it, all the technicalities, all the project development stages, everything from scratch without any idea in mind. And we were also excited. The first session was just brilliant that we had as a full team. 2 or 3 days after that, immediate the entire state was in lockdown. We weren't allowed to go out of our houses. That was something that we didn't expect at all at that point in time. There was a huge motivation drop all around, not just as seniors, amongst our juniors as well, that what will happen now. The team is just founded. We are just starting off with a project. We have no prior experience, no prior knowledge about how to build anything close to a rover. And yet there's such a situation that we cannot go offline, we cannot work even offline. All we have is coming online on a meet and working together. So all of this, I still remember there were weeks after that that we weren't able to work because firstly there was no communication, there was a communication gap because we weren't able to meet. Then secondly, because it was such a dire situation, what happened for the first time after such a long period of time, even our seniors were confused as to how do we progress, how do we bring the team back together, this entire loss of motivation that is there all over the entire team, how do we give them hope that we can still go ahead with this, we can still work on this project. So they consulted our faculties, our HODs and everyone. And from our faculties and HODs, they suggested that you at least try, you give your best. If nothing, at least gain the experience, gain the knowledge that you can. Pandemic is such a situation that you cannot expect what is going to happen next. You cannot expect that there will be a particular time where you'll be able to work offline. Keeping one mindset in a mind that you have started this, you go ahead with it, you keep your team together, you stick to your team. Having that in mind, within a few weeks or so, we started with online meets. Initial stages were mainly focused on research. We had no idea how to go ahead with manufacturing and everything at that point, because we had just started a research on what a rover is in general. We didn't even have that idea at that point. It was quite a tough time for the entire team because right from basic subsystems to complicated subsystems like the robotic arm, we had to build everything from scratch, collect funds at the same time. In the pandemic situation, a lot of organizations were hit. So at that point, funding and all procurement of resources were also a problem. I remember the first component we were actually able to procure was 1.5 years down the line after, that is 2021. So I'll come to that part a bit later. But at the start, it was quite a challenge. We had no idea what types of systems are there because we weren't able to interact with anyone offline. And there are a lot of limitations when it comes to online meets and everything. How we exactly communicate with each other, how we do research, how we discuss stuff with each other. There are a lot of places where we go wrong. There are a lot of places where our discussion cannot go properly because there's an essence to an offline meet which cannot be accomplished on an online meet. All of these things were something that was a tough time for all of us. It was quite a bit of a challenge. So we still tried to keep the entire team together. We tried to hold sessions where we could discuss about international competition, something apart from this, something related to space and robotics, so that people could renew their hope and renew their interest in working towards this project. At that point, actually, the registrations for ERC had begun for 2020. It was announced at that point in March, April-ish that the competition was going to be offline. And knowing our situation and how worse it had become in India, we had kind of predicted that we won't be able to work anytime soon offline on the project. So we'll at least try our best. We'll at least try and see if we can qualify for the competition. If all the documents and everything that is required for qualification, is that something that we are capable of doing, or is that something that we need to work on from scratch? As it was a new competition, as we didn't have any prior experience, right from understanding the rule book. I still remember reading the rule book in tens of sessions, reading it so many times that rules were memorized by us, score tables were memorized by us, because we wanted to understand the rule book to such an extent that we could give our 100% in the reports that we deliver. And then ultimately it will be dependent from ERC whether we can qualify or not. We didn't want to leave any stone unturned while applying for, while registering, while submitting PDRs, while submitting FDRs for the competition. The first FDR the first PDR that we submitted 2020, we had such an uncertainty throughout. We didn't know if the risk that we had planned was correct. We didn't know if the technical requirements were correct, the assumptions were correct. We didn't know if the systems actually come together the way we are thinking they come together. But still, we went ahead with it and we submitted. And to our surprise, we did qualify for the competition. But again, major challenge was how do we work on the rover offline? As soon as the pandemic hit, maybe within a month or so, we started coming together on meets and we started discussing. We had realized at coming together offline and working on a project is not just relevant to the physical project. A lot of other things also depends on it, like the documentation that you make, the plans that you set for the team. All of these things are also dependent on your working together as a team, and working offline. One of the major challenges that we faced was the communication gap that was there in between, because of not meeting offline and working on it. We had to, I remember we had to sit for hours on a particular point just discussing how it would be. Like for example, I remember in the PDR when we were doing risk analysis, we had not made a wheel until then. We had not even seen a wheel, how the wheel of a rover is in real life. What are the various factors that go into the making of a wheel? How, what are all the other things that go into it, right from the research to the development stage? I remember we were sitting on the risk analysis part of the wheels for the rover while preparing the PDR, and we had no clue as to, like, we had jotted down some points that these could be the probable case of how a wheel could react to a particular situation that may come in the competition, or this may be a particular risk that might come our way during the preparation or during the competition. But there were times when we were just blank because we didn't even have a wheel in front of us. We were at our homes on an online meet. Like typically when we are working offline, if we are stuck somewhere, even if it's preparing some content for reports, if we are stuck somewhere, we try to build it. We try to build a prototype version of it or something small scale and try to make it work so that we can see what are all the problems that come into it, and maybe that is something that we can inculcate in our reports. But that is something that we were unable to do at that point, and that was a major challenge for us, that everything that we had prepared, everything was all out of our imagination, all out of our technical skills up till that point, all out of our logical reasoning, trying to imagine all the risks, all the factors of safety that we can take during the entire project. All of these things have gone into it. So I would say our major work during this thing was exhausting our imaginative side of how we could imagine it, how we could see it working, how we could see the problems which could come, how we could try to fix it. So that was one of the major challenges that we faced in the when it comes to specific to the remote competition, and we were unable to work offline. We only had the option of working online. So that was one of the major challenges. Apart from that, we didn't have anything with us at that point because, like I said, as the team started, everything was shut down for us. So we didn't even have a bolt in our hand to see what all could happen with a bolt and a nut. So it was just, I mean, I can't put it in words. It was just a tough time for us. Brainstorming on ideas, hours and hours of us, of just brainstorming on stuff that we ourselves are uncertain of. This is one of the major reasons which brought the entire uncertainty factor for us in the competition, that we didn't know if we could qualify, we didn't know if our reports were up to the mark which are required by the competition. As the competition progressed by June, July, or something. ERC themselves announced that it's going to be a virtual competition because of the entire pandemic situation. So that was a point of relief for us, that even though our rover is not ready, we can at least still participate, we can at least still learn from the competition. As the documents progressed, as we got a clearer idea of what exactly is expected from us in the competition, we weren't expecting much during the first year of the competition. We were only expecting that we get to learn something where all we can work on ourselves, how better we can build the project, how better we can improve our documents. And with that mindset, we had participated. But during the competition for the navigation task, maintenance, and everything, there's quite a big of difference in terms of the locations, in terms of the resources available. We had lots of connection issues, we had lots of controller connectivity issues, we had pings going up to 1000 ms, and there were like 6-7 seconds of lag between our connection from here and them actually being performed there, the commands. So it was quite a ride during the entire thing, of ups and downs during the entire competition. But that experience was just unparalleled to anything. We got to learn a lot of things. We interacted with a few other teams during this entire period. We got to know their side of the story. How exactly do they apply? How exactly do they plan their? The competition turned out to be good from our end. We came third globally in our first year, 2020, even though not having worked on the rover, and we also were able to secure the best science planning award for the first year. I remember all of us sitting in a room and just bursting out in tears because we were so overwhelmed by the result. We didn't even expect that we would get a podium finish because it was everything was uncertain at that point. But we did get clarity because of the entire experience through the competition. We did get clarity that this is how the competition progresses. This is what is expected of us. We did make a lot of mistakes along the way, but we still stood together as a team and we still worked on them. Remote formula is quite a replication of how actual systems in various space agencies work. Like they control rovers and everything based there on Mars with the data that they receive. So it's quite a similar situation where everything is reliant on the technology that is sent there. If there is something that fails over there or something, there is nothing that can be done from here. So that is something crucial to remote. I feel it's a different approach. It's something that is well thought of. It's very well planned by ERC, and it gives us real life experience of how you can control something which is in a remote location with the technologies that are available and with the technologies that you yourself can build and work upon. In terms of learning, there is a huge scope for learning, may it be from software side, may it be from the integration side, may it be from the planning of the entire tasks. Like when it comes to the navigation task or when it comes to maintenance task, even in real life applications of rovers on Mars, there's a particular time period in which you're supposed to do a particular task. Or if it's a rover that is being sent for exploration purposes, there is a pre-planned path that the rover is sent with, or a pre-planned notion in mind that this rover is set for this particular region on Mars and it is supposed to explore this region and find out all of these things. This is very well inculcated in the science and navigation task in ERC, where we are supposed to submit a similar type of plan before the competition. It's a wonderful experience when it comes to learning, when it comes to transfer of knowledge, when it comes to professionalism while working towards a project, when it comes to an actual experience of how a space mission is, even though it's on Earth. But the challenges that we have to face, technologies that are available to us, the limitations that we have are something very similar to actual Mars missions. And that is something that I think is very well inculcated in ERC. Pandemic situation had worsened by that period of time. By ERC ended September, October, or December, the pandemic situation was way worse. There were new variants and everything coming. So the we weren't able to work offline even then. By that time, we had built our own designs for the rover. But since we had not worked on any manufacturing techniques offline, worked on any projects per se offline, we didn't have any idea if those designs that we had made would actually inculcate into real life and we would be able to work on them without any problems. Like I personally, when I joined the team, I was still in the first year of my degree. So I had not worked on manufacturing technologies or any other technologies, any space related technologies during that period. Procurement of resources was something that was very difficult for us because some of the technologies that we use or like we currently use are something that we have to import from outside. Given the pandemic situation, there was a limit on that as well. We could not go ahead with importing. We weren't able to place orders. We weren't able to order components. So our ordering of components and everything began in mid 2021, not before that, because approximately around April, June, or something, the pandemic situation started loosening over here. We were able to come offline, we were able to meet. I still remember a time when it had just ended and we had designs in mind, we had a flow in mind that, okay, these are the particular things that we need to take, we need to buy. These are the particular technologies that we need to buy so that we can start working on all the departments, on all the fronts. There's this one particular incident that I'd like to share. There were these bearings by SKF that we were planning to buy, and we were so excited. It was the first time we were going to go offline and we were going to actually ask someone that we are a student team and if we can buy these bearings from you. And a group of us, we came together, we went there, and we realized SKF themselves were a bit unoperational during that time. We were unable to buy those bearings that time. So all of these offline experiences that we had after the opening of pandemic, that was around 1.5 years after the team was founded, we got to learn a lot of things from there because up till that point, while we were working on the designs, while we were working on the documentation part, we had been working from such an aspect that whatever technologies are available on the internet, we would be able to find those technologies offline. But that was something that is not true. We had designed our systems in such a way that we would be able to use all the technologies, but when we actually went offline with the designs, we found out that these technologies are not available, or maybe they are available, but the people who are operating them, they have another orders on their own hands and they aren't able to work currently with us. They aren't able to help us. So because of these procurement of resources, when it comes to components, ordering of components, there's a delay in components. The components are unavailable. When it comes to ordering, importing components, there's another delay in importing because there's customs and everything that is involved in all of those things. So it was quite some experiences that we had during this entire period. We had applied, it was during the pandemic situation that we had applied, and ERC had released at the start itself that 2021 will be both on-site and remote. We'll apply for both. We had an experience, 1 year experience in remote, so we can definitely, if not achieve those positions, at least we can try our best. We can learn new stuff out of remote, and we can definitely try for on-site, because at that point we didn't know what the pandemic situation would be at the start of 2021. We got qualified for both the formulae. After that, we had the test drives for remote. We had After test drives, we qualified. We came in the list for the finalists for ERC 2021 for both remote and on-site. But unfortunately, up till mid 2021, we weren't even able to meet offline, because of which our rover was not ready. By the end of August or by the end of July, we had to tell ERC with a very heavy heart that we won't be able to come offline, even though we had qualified, and so that they could give the chance to some other team who is prepared with their rover and who could come to the competition and perform. That was a pretty big breakdown point for us, that we had done everything we could and we had qualified for the competition, but because our rover was not ready, we were unable to come to the competition. We focused on remote. We diverted all our resources towards remote for 2021, and we got pretty good results there as well. We won the competition. We secured the navigation and best science planning award during ERC 2021. So the experience after ERC 21 has been great. We have learned a lot of things along the way. We had learned a lot of things from our mistakes, where we can work on, what are all the things that we can work on, how exactly do we proceed. During this entire period of time, we have communicated with a lot of teams from India, outside of India, how they work on their projects. At the start, we knew that there was science requirement from the competition, so we had set up a team specifically to work on the science aspect. They had started right from the basics, like what is a crater, what is a volcanic eruption, what are the things that go into a volcanic eruption. After hours and hours of research, hundreds of research papers, searching for research papers online, maybe if we were able to go to a library, or maybe if you go to somewhere where we could look at encyclopedias, where we could look at other methods of information, maybe if you could contact a professor who has some experience in these scientific exploration areas. That entire team was focusing purely on the science aspect when it came to research. So we had gone through JMAS, Google Earth, lots of research papers, all the other softwares that go into searching all of these things. We had zoomed in 200 times into the landscape of Mars on JMars or any other, to an extent where a laptop could not take it and would just crash. There have been lots of instances like this where we have, at the most minute detail, like we have even in craters, if we know this is a crater, we would still zoom in, we would still research about each particular, like if there's a particular, let's say, a division of border on the crater. At that point, we didn't know that it could be a graben or it could be something else. It could be fluvial activities or anything. So at that point, we just knew that there is some deformity over here, and we need to find out what this particular thing is. So we would now start searching on deformities on the Mars yard, deformities on actual Mars. We would try to look for other examples throughout that particular region of such examples, and we would try to correlate them, their location, what would go into all of this. I would say our majority of time has gone in researching on finding out research papers, finding out, trying to gain knowledge from any resource possible, trying to get a full understanding of how that particular geological feature was formed from the scratch, like thousands of years back, how it is formed and how it has progressed, how it has changed. We have thoroughly searched softwares when it came to JMAS, Google Earth, all of these softwares, looking at various landscapes, and that has really helped us make our reports up to the mark. Like the moment we got, like I remember the moment we got the elevation model for 2021 science, like within the first 10 minutes, we were able to recognize almost 7 to 8 features on the Mars yard. And after that, we knew that these 7 to 8 features are something which are there, which we can see. So these are something that are finalized by us, and now we only need to work on the other features that are present on the Mars yard apart from these 7 to 10 features. So the science team at that point was ready to that stage that they could finalize on certain features that they could see. Obviously, there were challenges there because the ERC had prepared such a model that there was a combination of two or more features which we were unable to find on JMars and everything, even though we looked everywhere, literally. But that is something that really brought excitement, really brought challenge to the thing, and it really made it fun for us as well to look, to cry about it, to laugh about it, and all of those things. So yes, I would say the research and planning part of it is what helped us the most for the science task, at least. We started manufacturing by the end of 2021 because there was a lot of delay when it came to procurement of resources. Over here, it's not easily available. All the components and everything is not easily available. We have to find them, we have to finalize and everything. There was a point where we had to redesign our entire rover because, like I said, when we actually started meeting offline in 2021, there were a lot of new things that came to light, a lot of new technologies that could not be used from our end, either because of the fact that they were very expensive or because of the fact that they do not work exactly the way we intended them to work, the way we were seeing them, that these things could be manufactured from these technologies. Turns out it's a very difficult task and it's something that cannot be relied upon. So we could not go ahead with those. So we had to redesign a lot of our subsystems. I remember we had a proper flow for the wheels planned before going offline, but then we had to redesign our entire wheels. We had to redesign parts of a suspension. We had to redesign a major part of a robotic arm because of certain technologies not being available. So after having done all of that, finalizing on newer components that we'll be using on the rover, this then making sure that these components and everything is available in the market for us to buy and for us to work upon. So this entire thing brought a delay in our schedule, which postponed our manufacturing even further. By the start of 2022, by the end of 2021 and start of 2022, we actually started manufacturing our rover. It was slow paced at first because it was our first time manufacturing. We had very limited resources at our hands when it came to technologies and also when it came to funds. So we had to make sure that the one thing that we went ahead with was the right path. Everything that we bought, everything that we machined our parts with, we first confirmed them from our faculties. We first confirmed them from industry experts whom we had certain discussions with beforehand. We confirm them with our seniors if this is something that can be done, and if this is something we can go ahead with. After having all of these discussions multiple times, because this was one phase that we had at the end of 2021, where there was a huge delay and we didn't want any of that delay to be inculcated in the next year. So we were making sure at each step that this was something that was possible and this was something that could be done from our end and we could achieve this. We have registered for both the competitions. We have submitted the PDR for remote. Right now, the PDR for on-site is due at the end of May, and we'll be submitting that as well. And we'll be seeing what are the results, whether we qualify for the competition, and if we do, then we'll really be looking forward to coming offline this year to ERC, so that we could gain that one experience, that one element that we lost over the past 2 years of actually coming there, interacting with teams, interacting with ERC, and working on such a big project, because this is something that we've aimed for the past 2 years. Even talking about it brings goosebumps to all of us in the team. So yeah, we're looking forward to participating in ERC. There were actually two major motivation drops during the past 2 years for us. The first one was at the start of 2020 when the pandemic situation hit. We had no clue how we were supposed to go because it was a new team. We didn't even know how we were supposed to work together, let alone work on a project. We didn't even know how to work together with ourselves. That was a huge motivation drop for us. But our seniors, our faculties, they motivated us. They gave us hope that you try your level best. You give your 100%. Even if that is something that does not turn out the way you expect it to, you learn whatever you can from that. So that was one time where we were confused. I wouldn't say disappointed. I wouldn't say angry. I wouldn't say any of those words. I would say we were confused as to what to do, what's the next step from here, how do we go forward. But that is something that everyone around us helped us with. We stood together as a team, we tried our level best, and we gave our best. The second major motivation drop was in 2021. Once the pandemic situation had loosened up a bit, once we had started coming offline with the goal, at that point it was like for almost 1.5 years we had been working on the research part of it, we had been working on the designing part of it, how we could go ahead with testing, manufacturing, all of that. We had a planned timeline for all of that. But and at that point, by mid 2021, we had seen the designs so many times, we had gone through the documents, designs, everything so many times that the team had reached a saturation point, that it's the same design we're looking at every single day, and we're trying to think of new things that we can do to that design, or we are trying to think of any other alternative technologies that we can use to maybe produce that particular part or maybe procure that particular component. And there was a point in at the end of the pandemic that we were at a standstill, that where do we go from here in terms of offline work, because 1.5 years we had been working online, we literally haven't even met offline even once. And going to that one stage was a stage of disappointment for us, because and a huge motivation drop, because what we had thought of for ourselves of how we would progress with the project was not something that was reciprocated either by the procurement of resources or by the technologies available to us. So that is something that we have learned along the way while working offline, which is a very necessary experience for any team building a project. Because unless one thing that we have picked up from there is that unless you work on something offline, come together, work on it together, that you cannot expect it to be built properly the way you intend it to be unless you have complete knowledge of what all are the things that are available to you. Now that we have an idea of what are the things available to us, there are less delays. We are able to get stuff manufactured, be it testing. We are able to get that done in lower periods of time, because we have some prior experience of planning and some prior experience of procurement. I would say that is a really important experience for any team working on a project. For the teams that are starting right now from scratch, my one advice would be, if you have something in mind, if you have a particular goal in mind, like for example, you're a part of a club and you have a goal in mind that I want to participate in this competition, keep that goal in mind. Don't deter from that path. Whatever problems you face, whatever challenges you face, try to sort them out. Try to bring as many opinions of as many people as possible, because that will give you a variety of opinions from which you can select the best one that you think is for your project. Try to communicate with other teams who have been established from a year or 2 years or maybe more. Try to communicate with them. Try to take their help on your projects as well. Don't deter from your path. Like I said, problems come when you're working on a new project. It's your first time working. You cannot expect everything to go the way you planned. Keep some margin of error, keep some margin of buffer while you're working on a project, and be realistic when it comes to working. Don't just go on the basis of assumptions while working on the project. One thing that you need to keep in mind is, when you all are just starting, don't start with the goal that I want to win this competition in the first year itself. Start with the goal that you want to learn. Once you gain as much knowledge, as much clarity on that competition, on that particular project as possible, only then try to go for something way higher. Obviously, if you're already going so already if you're going for if you're planning for something, if you're planning for the moon, go ahead. Our best wishes with you, and everyone's wishes with you. But be realistic, and as much as you can learn out of those things, learn, grow. At the same time, pass on this knowledge to other team members, pass on this knowledge to younger generations. Make sure you inculcate these same qualities in them as well, that your main goal is to learn, your main goal is to grow, your main goal is to improve yourself and your team. Don't look at what other teams are capable of doing. Don't look at what other teams have resources available with them. Don't compete with other teams in terms of anything. Look at yourself, look at what you are doing, look at what you are working on, and work on yourself and improve yourself year after year. Because at no point will you be perfect for a particular competition or for a particular project. There will always be changes that come along the way. There will always be newer things that are expected from your team. There are newer things that are expected from the project. And so just stick to the project, keep working, and improve yourself day after day. Is something that I share with my team as well, and I share with other teams as well. That just keep working on your own self, keep working on your entire team together, and make sure that your team reaches heights that you expect your team to reach.